Hi, my name is Adrienne Ashton, and today I'm going to be talking about the gifted brain. If you're lucky, every year you may have a student or more who behave in a way that make you wonder if they could perhaps be a gifted student. They are the ones that come in excited to learn. They do all the work to the best of their ability. They're anxious to answer questions in class, and they score well on the tests that you give them. They come in prepared. These are high achieving students, but does that necessarily mean that they are gifted students? Being high achieving and being gifted are not the same thing. So what is the difference between them? This list has a nice overview of the characteristics of a bright child or a high-achieving student and a gifted learner. And as you look at the list, you'll notice that the bright child, they know the answers, they're at the top of the class, whereas the gifted learner goes beyond knowing the answers to asking questions that show that they're thinking beyond what the class is doing. They're above where the classes. They might even have wild and silly ideas because their mind is going in so many places. They need less repetition to master a concept, which means they can learn more during the year than other students can. Just as a quick example. Let me tell you about two students that I had this year that show the difference between being a high achieving student and a high ability student. One student, we'll call her Anna, right from the beginning of the year, showed interest. She always shows that she's listening in class. She does a very good job on her work, always makes sure she's doing things right, is anxious to ask and answer questions in class. And she is the kind of student that every teacher, of course, loves to have. Another student that I had this year, Paul, was a bit of a struggle. I showed the picture of a sleeping student here to represent Paul's typical behavior, trying to fall asleep in class, or when he was involved in class, he would often have just off-the-wall ideas and be very expressive with his opinions. Well, recently, Paul did an assignment, a PowerPoint, where he showed his creative abilities with the humor and the wordplay that he used in his PowerPoint, which really showed that he could be a gifted student, even though his lack of focus and work made him not a high achieving student in my class. So what does make a gifted student different? Is it something in their physical brain, or is it just the way that they were raised? Most likely it's actually a combination of both. They have found differences in the brain of gifted children. The cerebral cortex, which is part of the frontal lobe, through MRIs, they have found that it is thicker and growing at a higher rate during childhood than in other students. This part of the brain is important in an intellectual activity called fluid analogizing. So what is fluid analogizing? We know an analogy is when we're making a comparison. For example, black is to white as hot is to cold, just simple opposites. But fluid analogizing is talking about how when we categorize something, it could belong to several categories depending on what we're looking for. Or, as this researcher put it, categories are quintessentially fluid entities. They adapt to a set of incoming stimuli and try to align themselves with it. For example, what is the London of the United States? Well, we could say that it's Washington, D.C., because that is also the capital of the country. We could say that it's New York City because it is the biggest city, as London is the largest in England. We could say that it's Los Angeles because it's the movie industry center, just as London is. So, this analogy is fluid. Categories change. So there is a physical difference which makes students who are gifted are found to be really good at fluid analogies and have a higher working memory. They can work with more facts at a time. But with all of that, if they're not given the right environment, they're not going to reach their potential. Students need access to a good education where they are introduced to a lot of ideas, where they feel comfortable. Also, a good home environment where they are encouraged to do their best at school. And then within school, to help them reach their highest capabilities. Another great thing to happen is when a teacher can help them to develop attributes which will help them as individuals, such as having grit, which is sticking to a task, empathy, which means just understanding where other people are coming from, their viewpoints and their needs, having courage and risk tolerance, not being afraid to be different or to have different ideas, which is especially difficult in junior high, I have found. Having a growth mindset, understanding that no matter where they are now, they have this capacity to increase in intellect and ability. Having self-esteem and confidence, valuing their own ideas. Being curious, wanting to explore and experiment and find out. And even subversiveness and independence, not being satisfied with the way that things are. In this kind of environment, a student can reach their full potential. Thanks for listening. This has been Adrienne Ashton.